No.
We are live.
We are live.
Something sucks. Hello. That's the best start, no?
Amazing.
Of any conversation.
That's a great start. Yeah, actually, we know that Knob Twiddlers means something. So, for people who don't want to use that name, you can also say Rotary Encoders Twiddlers Hangout. I think that's a safer one. That's the R-rated or whatever. Anyway, good evening, everybody. Good to see you all.
Good to see you.
So tonight we are talking with Sebastian Mullaert. He's joining us from Sweden, somewhere in the woods. He just told me. I know I've seen your studio. It's totally remote, but we'll get back to that. So amazing location. Welcome, Sebastian. How are you?
Thank you so much. Wonderful to be here. Pleasure.
Yeah, good to have you on. It's.
We never met in person.
No, it's strangely enough we did
for many years.
Yeah, strangely enough we haven't. But I guess I've been familiar with your projects for ages. So it's really nice to speak to you tonight and pick your brain about everything. So very cool you're here. Also joining us from Wales is Steevio.
Hi.
Sitting in his spaceship over there. You're also in a very remote location, right?
Yeah, well, it's not exactly remote, but it's remote from civilization in the sense that it's not near a city or anything like that. But yeah, I suppose you could call it remote. Yeah,
I would say that it's remote.
Yeah.
It's not near a city. Yeah. Actually, my location is I'm right downtown in my city in Rotterdam. So that's a hell of a lot of difference. It's when I walk outside, it's restaurants, bars, schools, everything. So very different from where you are. Anyway, also Tulpa Dusha, Anna is joining us from Amsterdam. Good evening, Anna. How are you?
Good evening. I'm doing good. I'm also right in the center of Amsterdam, just like you described. Coming out of my house and seeing all the, restaurants and all the active life. So, hi.
Do you have your studio in your house as well?
I have very minimum here. I'm quite a minimalist person in my nature. So, for example, like the moment my setup starts to grow, I immediately drop it to modular moon because my mind starts to wander around from one interesting device to another. So I'm deliberately sticking to the 7U format, which I transform with time the moment I switch to different style of music or whatever happens in my personal development as an artist. When you work with modular, how quickly you grow and learn new devices, and then you outgrow them, and then you want something more complicated. So Steevio is probably familiar to that recycle loop of Eurorack. So I have very minimum at home, like new Russian synth come over, and I'm testing them at the moment, and will add them probably to my setup as well as an extra voice, because sometimes I'm lacking extra voice because I'm sticking to a relatively small setup, and the rest of equipment. I have Pacarana here, but that's like its own world, and fortepiano and the voice recording microphone. So, and one traveling OP1, just not to be bored. So I'm quite minimalistic person in that sense.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess everybody who's working in studios finds ways for themselves to add some restrictions to the arsenal that's available. I guess because if I look, for example, in the place where Steevio is sitting, there are like infinite amount of possibilities. So Steevio, do you have any strategies to keep things simple enough to be controlled, to make it controllable and flexible enough to to be free to improvise? How do you manage that with so much gear around you?
Yeah, it's deceptive because really I don't use all this gear. A lot of the equipment in the studio is stuff I bought in the 90s. I don't use a lot of it anymore. I occasionally use some. I mean, I've got the 909, the 303, and the 2 101s, and I don't really use them anymore. I've also...
That's the conclusion I came to at some point, and then I thought, like, why am I carrying that all around? And my back started to hurt, like, you know. So, I'm sorry, but that's like personal.
Yeah. It's not that I might not use them again, but at the moment, what you can see just directly behind me here, the 2 cases of modular stuff, that's all I'm using. So basically, I'm jamming on just that and nothing else. And that is what I take to gigs as well. So I just lift these 2 cases out, put the lids on, and off I go to a gig. And the rest of the stuff in the studio, occasionally I might plug something in just for an extra sound or something. But I try just to improvise on this modular stuff here behind me, because I want to be able to do exactly the same thing in the studio as I do live. I don't want there to be any difference. So I've also, out of shot here, I've also got a lot of compressor gig, you know. I want to be able to plug this gear here into the system at the gig, and it's exactly the same as as I do in the studio. So it's, you know, I've got the equipment, but that's just from years and years of gathering equipment. But I stopped when I bought the modular stuff. I started to stop using the other gear, and gradually, bit by bit, I got it down to just these 2 cases, and that's all I use.
But it's still a hell of a lot of stuff. So how do you still, you know, focus your instrument in a way that that it's doing what you wanted to get out of it? Because I mean, even with just one rack with maybe, you know, 6-7 modules, you can potentially play for days and years, you know.
Yeah.
So how do you have like a system to it, or is everything has like, did you divide it in functions, or how did you go about that?
So basically, the reason it's so big is purely because, first of all, I like big controls. I like big knobs on things. I don't like tiny little fiddly knobs and stuff, especially for you know, for playing live. And also, I've got very big sequencers in this rig. So the sequencers take up, well, about a quarter of that case and a quarter of the other case. So, and it's all analog. So there's only 2 digital modules in the whole rig. So everything's just bigger, you know. You could probably have something half that size and it would function. You could be able to get the same functions from it. But it's taken me a long time to get to this point where I'm using what I really want to use. All this stuff over here, you can't see some of it because of the Steevio thing in the corner there. But all this stuff is where I do my experiments. So I've got, these are all old modules that I used to use in the main rig. But then I decided, no, I'm not so sure about that. I'm going to get something that's better. And so I gradually got to the point where everything in the rig I really like. Everything's really good. Everything's designed purely for, you know, the whole rig's designed purely for improvisation. So I don't have any saved patches. I don't have any saved sequences. It's all, I do everything completely on the fly. So the sequences have to be easy to control. You have to be able to, you know, they've got to have good switches and buttons so that, you know, it's not, there's no menus or anything like this. So it's just a pure analog approach to it. I've got nothing against, you know, digital gear, and I've got nothing against menus, but for a live improvisation. If I want to really get lost in the music, I don't want anything planned out. I want it to happen in real time. So that pretty much sums it up. And a lot of the modules in there are very performance related. So I've got, you can't really see without me moving the camera, but I've got 2 of these modules here. It's a hint and switch mix, and it's basically an 8x8 switch matrix. And so to make tunes, I actually mix and match different sequences together and add them together in this. It's a precision adder, so all the CVs coming in go out exactly the same. There's no loss or anything. So I can add notes together and they come out. So if I add a D to a G, it will come out as an A, because you're adding 2 semitones to a G, so you get an A. So I play the tunes on this. It's a bit like a keyboard, I suppose, but a different format altogether to a normal keyboard. So yeah, I mean, you know, I could talk for hours about it. So I'm not gonna hog the whole thing by explaining it all. But yeah, it's a lot simpler than it looks from where you are, because a lot of it is just a lot bigger than what most people's modules. You know, a lot of people have modules with menus, and therefore they're much smaller. Whereas this is, you know, my sequence is like this. You know, So yeah, that pretty much sums it up, I think.
Yeah. Well, you know, the interesting aspect that I always I'm interested in is, especially with modulars or any live rig really, is how people manage to find the right balance between possibilities and sort of open-ended, you know, arsenals of sounds and whatever, drum sounds, whatever, and you know, the actual controllability of it, you know. So because if you play live, you want to be able to basically go wherever your music takes you, right? And and that balance between having it manageable and still open enough to completely meander and wander off into different directions. That's something that takes some thought process in advance, and I'm always interested in how people solve this problem.
Absolutely, yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Oh, no. No, go
because
ahead.
it was like, but yeah, there's this, to me, it is always like a thought process first. So I would plan the whole setup, because I also have to limit myself to the format I chose. As a traveling artist, you want to be able to, you know, jump into the airplane, take a backpack and perform. And I belong to the psychedelic trance scene, and sometimes gigs are very far in the mountains. I had the gigs in Himalaya, you know, where you have to climb up to get to the party. So you want to be very flexible, you know, and I was always into this like one backpack kind of mentality, because I love nature and I also want to be able to be like very free, you know, in that sense. So that's why the 7U format was a choice for me at the moment. But actually, the deeper I go into modular, I shift more into digital world at the moment. And now I'm kind of using both. Like I have the DFAM, which is like analog voice. And I also use a Nord sequencer that is very powerful sequencer, where you can have also your modulations in it, control voltages, you can have all your melodies, everything pre-programmed. But that is a little bit, yeah, like you were mentioning, that like, yeah, there's certain like predictivity for your live performance, which I also try to avoid in a way. But then again, if I'm if I am booked to perform psychedelic trance, for instance, then this style of music requires certain pre-work to be done. Because every 4 or 8 bars something is changing, and when you with minimal techno there's way more time, it's slower, it's 128 136 BPM, so you have more time go into the jazzy kind of mode and, you know, do atmospherics around it. So that's like one way. And then when I shift to psychedelic trance, like yesterday I was supposed to perform and I accidentally completely forgot about it because I was busy with new synthesizers. And then I was like, okay, I should quickly write for you 1 hour now. And then I thought like, wow, but that's psytrance. the way I hear it in my heart, I would need a couple of days reprogramming everything. And then I spoke to the guy, I said, you know what, sorry, I will drop you the previous recording, like I'm really apologizing, but I just like didn't want to have this let's do something quick, because like, you know. So yeah, there is this like, I think music style predefines how you actually treat it, you know. If you're into the minimal or into ambience, then you collect according tools and create the setup to yourself and pre-plan your performance. Normally I think in time terms, so I would think, okay, there would be some beginning, and then there would be some progress in the middle, then maybe some withdrawal a little bit back closer to the second part, and then we progress it up, you know, into high, like if we talk about dancing music, no? So yeah, there is this approach that you want to be chasing, you know, in your mind. It will be primary intellectual work where you imagine kind of all this, like your goal first of all, and then goes the technical part. Okay, if I want to have this type of bass line, or if I wanted to change in, like, I don't know, like from this key into that key in that moment. And but yes, again, like I would say that, you know, see it this way, like there would be 30-40% where you will be pre-planning your steps and your performance, and then there's going to be like 60% where you don't know where you're going to go, because at some moment, some sounds, you suddenly, you know, open the resonance, and suddenly there's this extra tones coming up higher on tone, and then you, let's say, so press a sample on, and then suddenly there's this created a third, you know, musical form, and this musical form will also, how to say, challenge you to work with it in a way, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of like the music creates itself in the moment of time, and you just follow it in a way. Like I think.
Yeah, I guess what you're saying now is pretty much the essence of playing live, right? So it's you. I mean, you can have different strategies. You say you prepare like some basic guidelines or a system, and then improvise with whatever you've prepared in advance. Personally, I don't do that at all. It's like, it's especially the last year when I did all the improvisations with other people, it was basically a matter of using a setup that I know really, really well. So I know everything about it. It's like I'm totally fluid with it, but I never prepare anything. So it's like I make everything on the fly, every sound on the fly, everything on the fly. And it's simple. It's a simple setup, but it's enormously versatile. It has a huge range of possibilities. So for every given situations where you find yourself in, you have a way out. You can find a way to make it work, you know. Sebastian, what is your strategy to build a live setup? What is important for you when you choose your weapons?
Yeah, I have kind of a mixed, a combination of a digital world and an analog hardware situation. And I kind of, since the 90s, I've been exploring all kind of different ways and different setups, and kind of trying to find, and I think this is important, that there's so many ways of playing, and people should choose a way that feels free for them, because I think that's what we want to feel, is that freedom. How can we express something we feel? How can we lose ourselves and feel comfortable in that? And we're all different. We have certain similarities, but we are different. So we need to try things, and sooner or later come across this thing that, wow, I feel at home, I feel this safety, and because of that safety, I can take a step out in something that is unknown, and then suddenly the magic can happen. So for me, to really try to quickly describe it, you could say that like half the side of the set is based on Ableton, where I have sketches. So I have sketches that are made in the studio, which are very simple, and I have them on 12 channels, so I can control them. I've been kind of floating between having big mixers, going with 3 Model 1 mixers, and now I'm in a phase where I'm using K2 controllers for the sketches. So I can adjust everything, so it's just short loops. So, but it has the full spectrum of a basic song, you could say. And then I have hundreds of these sketches that I stretch from, deep ambient to classical music to banging techno to trance. It's all kind of stuff, and I keep all of them in the same set. So I can choose to kind of start off on any sketch I want to. And then the other side of the set is the drum machines, all the synthesizers, the outboard effects and stuff. And on that side, I have nothing planned. I don't have any sequences, no MIDI planned. Also a lot of loopers. So I use the sketches to start somewhere, and then I start to improvise. And with the sketches, as I control each sound of these 12 sounds individually, I can also choose to actually just use 1 or 2 sounds from a sketch and actually build like 90% of the sounds from only hardware, or even 100%, and then loop myself and get lost in the hardware, and then I can return back to different sketches. So for me, that also helped me to kind of, because I think that's also important, like when performing live, how can I take my passion from playing instruments or being in the studio, and how can I bring that to the stage? And for me, I really love sound design. I really love to sit in the studio and just mantrically create sounds and, mix weird noises with melodies, with rhythms, and, use hardware gear and digital stuff in the computer to create sounds that can even be really long phases of sounds. And these stuff, I don't feel that I can do on stage. These subtle things where the compressors start to grow, and if you have 3, 4 oscillators and they start to vibrate with each other, and you start to find that specific little weird rhythm, this stuff is not something that for me happens on stage, because I can't hear it that well. I can't bring all this stuff I have in the studio. So with the sketches, I have a possibility to capture that passion of mine and take these sounds onto stage. And then with the instruments, and I use mostly keyboards and drum machines, then I can add my love for playing keys and adding that feeling there. So it's kind of a mixed world.
Yeah. Is it important for you, I guess it's a question to all of you, is it important that whatever you manage to create on stage is in some way representing what people know from you? Like, does it need to represent earlier works or familiar stuff, or are you okay if it turns out something in some completely different realm? Is it because that question came up because you say you use sketches, and it is in a certain way an arsenal you can draw from, which is familiar to yourself, right? So. How much should it represent what people know you for, or is that important to you?
I don't care at all.
Cool.
I have so much sketches, and the sketches can also be made so fast. So it can be that I sit one day and there's 5 new sketches that I throw into the live set. I just drag and drop, and normally, because I keep all different projects, everything in the same project, I can really also choose to play things that maybe normally would not be very common in that situation. If I play a trance festival in the desert, suddenly I start to play classical music from my classical projects and add sounds from that. Or when I'm playing in a techno club, suddenly it comes trance sounds, or just to. But it's not really intentional. So I really try to, the way I play, to just feel, what do I feel for now? And not think about that at all. But then, of course, somehow you normally have some kind of voice. And I think, I can hear myself in all different sounds I do. So I think that can also kind of speak for it, but beyond genres and styles of music. But I don't care. I think it's better just to not care. And my Circle of Light project was, one of the intentions behind that was exactly to put myself and invite other people into a setting where we try to crash our own prejudgments and expectation, and also the audience. So, for example, if we have a show of 8 hours, and no one in the audience know who's going to play when and who's actually playing. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes 4, sometimes 1. and suddenly that opens this room like, oh, I can actually play ambient now in the middle of the night, or I choose to just come in and play in the end, and so I really wish for people to feel that freedom of losing or letting go of what is expected from you, or what is expected from a specific place.
Yeah, we'll get back to the circle of life thing, because I think it's amazing. It's an amazing concept to put a bunch of people together and then just improvise. I've done many of those as well, you know, at Stoor. But we'll get back to that later, because I was wondering, Steevio, your sets and your recordings are pretty much the same thing, right? So you like as I just asked Sebastian, how important is it for you to for your live sets to represent you know, your sound, your recordings, but you actually record your albums live as well. It's all improvised. So sometimes it is in a live situation, and other times it's for release. But do you think it's important that they match in some way?
I'm not sure if it's important, but it's something that I tend to do. Unlike Sebastian, I think my sounds generally at live gigs is pretty much the same kind of sound every time I play. I kind of play at certain tempos and in certain keys, and you know, it's just a sort of a general style that I've sort of developed, which I kind of stick to. It doesn't mean I can't do the other things, but maybe I feel safe when I'm doing that. I think Sebastian's a bit more sort of daring, mixing classical stuff, and you know, I haven't got the I don't know, I haven't got the knowledge of lots of different types of music to draw on. I've sort of come up through a kind of, well, I started out as a drummer, and then I was a guitarist and a bass player. But then when I started doing techno, I started doing acid techno. It was really banging fast techno, and gradually slowed down, gradually kind of introduced sorry, but yeah, I gradually sort of introduced other elements that I wasn't. I mean, for a start, a lot of people say what I'm doing is quite jazzy now, but it wasn't before. It was banging techno when I started out, and it isn't deliberate. It's just, it sort of comes about through the mathematics in the music. You know, it's like using step sequences in different step lengths and things like this, and using polymeters. It kind of brings out those sort of things. So I'm not deliberately trying to do that. It's just how it comes out. And so I suppose I've got a way of playing that has developed, and it's, you know, it's not massively, I'm not massively adventurous at going away from that at the moment, but it doesn't mean that I won't in the future. It's just at the moment I'm kind of a bit fixated on how I'm doing it, and trying to perfect it. So it's like the gear behind me there. It's an instrument. It's just one instrument, and it's all in one place. Everything's there. The sequences, the percussion, everything. And I'm just trying to get really good at playing that instrument. It's just like any other instrument. And it's taken a long, long time. So I'm not being too adventurous and trying to do too many different things. I'm trying to stick with what I'm trying to get right first, and then maybe once I've got a bit more fluent with that, then I can branch out a bit and do other things. I mean, I have released more sort of ambient style tracks and things like that, but it's not my main thing. And most of the time I'm playing in dance clubs. And another thing is, you know, when you're playing in the night as well, because a long time ago I was on towards the end of the night because I was playing quite fast music, whereas I've slowed down. So I kind of usually ask if I can play earlier in the night. So maybe, you know, sort of not at the first set, but maybe the second or third set in the night when there's not so much pressure on you to bang it out. And so I sort of found a sort of a niche in a way, I suppose. And I don't think it's important to do that, but it's just what I do. I think it's just how I've tended to develop over the years. So I think that probably answers that one.
Yeah. Brilliant. What about you, Anna? Do you fully improvise, and do your records or recordings need to be represented in what you play live, or don't you care either, like Sebastian?
Pretty much, yeah. Like, I mean, technically speaking, for instance, if I do because Tulpa started as a DJing and playing psychedelic trance scene, dark progressive, heavy, you know, but psychedelic trance is kind of like expects you to have certain form. It's predefined by the genre itself. And when I do the Dusha songs, there's lyrics, I sing in there. There is also strings in there. I also tend to jump into orchestral music a lot because of my background. My father is all my life there, you know, with our orchestra, and so it kind of speaks for itself. And at some point, of course, you collect certain material. Let's say sometimes I take parts of the songs from Dusha releases where I sing a form like self-love or something like this, you know. And I want to put it into the song because they say, oh, self-love. Okay, let's put some thought into that. And then, of course, it kind of like is interlinked and crosses itself in a way. But then again, like I discovered that you can create any sound from any other sound. So at some point you kind of become very flexible in that sense. You take your own sample, pitch it down, you know, stretch it up, put it into the reverb, and then suddenly all this like big ambient layer, and then you start to jump from that and add a bass line, a kick, or whatever, hi-hat. Like, the moment defines itself, and the feeling I experience at the moment, like music transmits emotions by a lot, and so often I feel that, okay, I feel tonight I feel sad a little bit, you know, for example, and I start to patch and take some part of the sad song I wrote for Dusha, you know, and then start to do something around that. So to be honest, yeah, I'm kind of also more flexible type of person. I stick to expectation of the style. If I'm booked to perform minimal techno and I know that I will be playing between 2 and 3 a.m., then of course I already know, okay, what's going to be happening with people at that time and what they would be expecting from me and that context in that party. And if it's psychedelic trance and it's like 4 a.m. in the morning and I know, okay, that's going to be 152 probably, and we really need to make it very heavy, you know. So I'm flexible in that sense. And now there was this there's Modular World. They are celebrating 1 year of anniversary, and they invited to be a part of that, and I made for them a little improvisation of 3 minutes where I decided, okay, why am I not adding my vocal? I really love to sing, and I was having this block about like actually standing up and singing. And only last year I started to kind of remove this blockage from my psychic, you know, because it's all interlinked, like how confident you feel around your skills, like, you know, for yourself, it's also like a very, very big psychological work behind going into the moment when you are actually very relaxed and very confident, and you know, it's not just technical, it's also something that you have to...
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the thing is, you know, you want to reach the point eventually where you always feel comfortable and totally unafraid to go anywhere you want, you know. But a lot has to do with how you can work on yourself and kind of try to, with various techniques or you know, just you know, confidence in yourself to reach the point where you are yourself. But there's always circumstances that are not under your control, like, you know, sound system, you know, the actual physical location, what time you are playing, and all these things. You know, they can, even though you are feeling confident to do whatever you want to do, those things can still interfere in how how much you can still be in the moment and forget about all these things. That is something that is always different.
That's true, yeah. That's why my position relatively, that question is more flexible, I guess, in a way. So, yeah, like I don't predefine. And also I don't really like repetitions. Like, for instance, when I love artists like Björk, but I can't imagine how can you sing your own songs for 10 years all over again. So that's, for me, would be like, but that's my character, because I'm always going, I don't like to go back, I'm always going forward. When I wait for the bus, if I lost the bus, I would rather walk a couple of stops, so not to wait, so it's your character that plays a role as well.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that, because when I do a live improvisation, I want to be as much surprised by what is happening as anybody who is spectating. It is, it's a funny way of dealing with music, because you are basically in the moment and as much unaware of what's coming next as anybody else, and trying to kind of ride that sort of balance of danger and comfort. I really like the the interaction between the two things. If it's too easy, I tend to get bored and be shitty, and
I have same, yeah.
and if it's too dangerous and things will actually go wrong, you put yourself in a bad position. So it's the sort of fine line between be comfortable and putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation, so you can kind of fight your way out of it. That's where the magic happens, usually, for me anyway. How's that for you, Sebastian?
I think you defined it perfectly.
Oh,
I think so too, yeah.
No,
I mean, danger needs to be there, right? Yeah,
exactly. And I think, like I think we can also compare this to a spiritual perspective. It's like when we start to practice on spirituality, I think it's very clear that when we feel really safe and we feel really balanced and we feel really strong, that's when something pops up. Then suddenly we can deal with something that is very difficult. Maybe an emotion comes up that is very heavy and difficult. And I think it's the same in music when we improvise. That when we can create this safety and really stand there safe and playing and know it, we invite mistakes. We invite the unexpected. We can look danger in the eyes and say, "Come here," and then we can play with it. Suddenly, it's not scary because it's also, like Anna said, with the psychological part. For me, to perform is so much to let go of what is expected, to let go of this need to show something specific, to, like, people around you that you work with, like, okay, go up, kill it, do the best show. And then it's like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do a good show. I want to go up there and I want to rest in my space, to be able to be transparent and honest and share what I feel. So that also means that when I can feel that space and that safety, I can also be shy, I can be sad, I can do mistakes, I can completely fuck it up, and it's okay. And suddenly when I dare to do that, I allow things to go wrong, and that helps me to do the magic and feel the moment and somehow crack this shell of what I can do, because that's also a psychological image we put on ourselves. And sometimes Absolutely. I feel when playing, it takes a bit of time. For me, it's like Steevio, and I think also you, Joachim. When I arrange music, when I record records, I only improvise. I had a long journey of having a more linear approach, sitting in Logic and Pro Tools, building songs, and then slowly until a few years ago, 100% I just record left-right stereo mix, and I don't do any post-production on the recordings. And for me, when I'm sitting and doing this in the studio, it's a process. Like the final recording is a product of everything I felt. Like Anna also said that, you know, maybe I take this thing and this sample and then I play around, I loop it. Suddenly you are somewhere and suddenly you are in that safety, the space, and things are just happening. And for me to let that happen on stage, I need to put myself in a place where this is allowed. So again, with Circle of Life, this was also part of the experiment. Like not thinking so much about what to play, absolutely nothing actually, and not think about any technicalities really, but focus on the spiritual side of things, on the warmness, about accepting each other, welcome, inviting each other, and tell each other, you're perfect. Play whatever you want, whenever you want, and suddenly see what happens when we have this approach to ourselves and others around us. And for me, it's so clear that of course there is this shell, and you know you need to find each other. You need to battle a little bit with yourself and the crowd, and you have thoughts popping by, and all kind of things happen, or someone tells you something, or like that kind of triggers and insecurity or whatever it can be. But if you get time to improvise and play a little bit longer, slowly, that disappears. And then we can really play for the sake of playing, not the sake of genres or what's expected or what do the crowd want. So it's for me it's so much psychology and spiritual
liberation, no? Like a meditation to actually be yourself in the moment of time, without all this like, hey, go do this, go do that, or I must do that, or I must like I was in my life. I had quite strict sister, and there was always you must kind of thing, and that took me some time to kind of break that finger and bite that. And I say, no, I must not, I'm me, and so it was for me, maybe it was my teacher to realize that, to actually she provided to me this experience that I could create a revolution inside of myself and trust myself enough, to my taste, to my technical skills, to my own calmness at the moment of time, at the moment of performance, and really, because I think also crowd, they pick up your frequencies. If you are nervous, you really feel that people are immediately also, and you don't want that. You want them to actually relax and to actually go through this meditative process, because dancing is actually a meditative process. You stop the monkey inside your head that all the time is blah blah blah, go do this, go buy this, worry about this, and the moment is gone, you suddenly really see that you are like a channel. You're channeling some music is invisible, right? But yet it's there. So it's invisible world in a way, and we suddenly become altogether that moment, and I think that's the end goal. Like when you actually can remove this attachment to your own image, your own false ego, it's called false ego if you study some disciplines like Vedic knowledge or Hindu or Buddhism or things like this. I don't know I know Sebastian is in that, but I don't know if you guys are into this kind of disciplines. But so they teach a lot how we are as humans beings, how are we made of? There is a manual to synthesizer, and there is a manual to you, as a being. So, and a part of that is actually in those ancient descriptions, there is this false ego concept, which you become throughout the lifetime. It kind of shapes you as a temporary matrix, that you live through. And then there is the higher self, which is your spirit, your own soul, that is reborn all over again. And then there is even higher form of you, which is called Paramatma, that is a God particle, basically. I don't want to go too far in that, basically, yeah, music is absolutely can be a way of finding your own self, like because actually the goal of life overall is to be conscious, you know, to ask questions, to learn, to like this spiritual life that Sebastian mentioned is real. At least for me, it's real, you know. And so music is for me is also a process of liberating myself as well, in a way, you know, and then passing it on to others. And yes, it's challenging, and of course you are nervous, and of course, you know, sometimes, like you were mentioning, sometimes you want to challenge yourself sound wise, and maybe you will be ridiculous at that moment, and you're like, oh, I don't want to risk it, you know. But then again, at some point, if you're like, but who cares, like we're all dead anyway, you know. And then you're like, wow, suddenly very open on the stage, and you're like, phew, do all kind of things. And sometimes you do, you know, sometimes I like to do sounds just in the name of the sound, like, okay, how far can I go with this instrument, like what crazy stuff can that do, you know, just like removing the whole expectation of genre or whatever. Or so yeah, to me it's very it's a path where I could actually free myself, I think, like
That's cool.
to a certain degree.
I totally understand what you're talking about. I don't have any, you know, I haven't really studied it the way you do, but my experience is basically built from, you know, being shitty and making mistakes myself, you know, all the time, many times, and then gradually find out, you know, what buttons you have to push and what things you have to address in yourself to reach that comfort level, or to reach that state where you can actually. There was a question about the audience. Actually, I wanted to go there with this, but you know, the worst thing you can do is actually have your environment take you out of your confidence, because you can actually force a room or a group of spectators to kind of follow you, you know, to really sort of you can guide people, or sort of manipulate the atmosphere. If you are really sort of comfortable and in the moment, you feel that everyone around you, or everybody that is really listening to what's going on, is reaching that same state, and they, you know, I think Sebastian calls it expectations, but you can take that away. You know, it's you can actually, by demanding space, by, you know, working with dynamics or working with speed, or, you know, what's going on in the sound, you can actually demand people to listen, or to sort of follow you, to go along with whatever you're trying to do. And the worst thing you can do is break out of that and be you know, become really rushed, or you know. I mean, everybody's made that mistake. You know, everybody who's been on stage knows this feeling of not being in control, and you know, just fuck it up, get really rushed and really sort of insecure and everything. But after a while, you get to the point where you can actually go anywhere and you know, sort of demand this state from yourself and everybody around you.
Oh yes.
Go, Sebastian.
I think it's also I really agree with what you said, and here I also think it's different. Also, like Anna mentioned, different characters of people, and I think this is also really important, and what I try to encourage people wanting to play live, or kind of joining that ambition, that there is not one way of doing it. And what you describe now is one character of artist. And I know many artists that are really good in that. There's also some DJs that come in, they feel it, they see the crowd, and they kind of demand this space, like you said. And you can't escape it. It's like, wow.
With demanding sounds a bit aggressive.
No, but I don't mean it's wrong.
Right.
But I mean it's one way of playing. And
right.
I think you should do that if that feels you. But I also know some concerts I've seen with the most nervous person on earth have also been some of the most beautiful concerts I ever seen. When that is true and that is transparent and honest and like shaking, and you can just feel the essence of that moment in that person at that time, that is also beautiful.
Yeah, I agree.
And,
It's oscillator. They oscillated.
yeah, and also to come back to the question that we got down there on the screen, like interacting with the crowd was a question. Like if any of us have the possibility to play, be free when we're playing, and at the same time actually connect with the crowd and play with the crowd. And for me, this is something that, and again, I think this is different characters, this is different personalities, different. Some artists are just amazing with connecting with a crowd, pleasing a crowd in a not bad way. I'm not judging that, but just feeling the crowd so much and putting the right record for that moment.
Well, interacting and pleasing are not the same thing. They're not the same thing.
No, but I mean not pleasing in a bad way. I mean just really, yeah, it's just different ways of doing it. But then there are other artists, and I feel a little bit myself, I like to connect with a room and a crowd, not by trying to understand them, but to come into a dance that somehow feels connected to what I feel, and then I start to feel them. So in a way, I often try not to think about the crowd, not think about the time I'm playing, not think about the size of the room, and just start to play and feel the music myself. And then slowly this space is coming, and then I can open up my senses and feel the room, and suddenly it's more of an interactive play. But when I start to feel the room too much, then suddenly I get into these thought patterns. Okay, it's 3 a.m. I should play this tempo. And I don't want that kind of thoughts to interact with what I play. So I try to go inwards, and with the openness of playing, and like you said, Anna, dancing is a meditation, and I think all of us feel that, being in the dance scene for so many years. Dancing together, many people, is just an activity of presence. We all become very present, and slowly we connect, because we are connected. So I don't think we need to actually try to interact. I think interaction comes by itself if we create space for it.
Yeah, it's totally true, but it's such a hard to describe thing, you know. It's very abstract, and it's also not linear. It is always in flux, you know, how much you resonate with whatever environment you are, and you know, this is not like when it's on. It can still fluctuate while you are in that moment, you know. So it's very it's very hard to explain to people who haven't performed like that, you know. But I agree. You can. I think my way is a little bit different from yours, because you are sort of firstly trying to be open to your own ideas. I usually sort of start with something that is easy to digest, or not easy to digest, but is actually kind of what people expect. And then once I have them, once I grab their attention, you know, I wander off in directions that they wouldn't believe were possible to enjoy. Because if I would start on such a tangent, you know, I would lose them instantly. So I sort of move in you know, deeper directions as I go on, basically. And I think that works for me, at least, you know. What about you, Steevio? Interaction with crowds.
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of what everyone said, really. Like you, I kind of generally try to start with something that I know will just kind of something that will get people interested and get people moving about, and then I can go off at tangents a bit after that. And yeah, I don't think about it too much, you know. I think once I actually start playing, I'm not not really thinking about that anymore. I just do what I'm doing, and I do feel like there's a connection with the audience. I think most artists do. I think if you're going to play to people dancing, you can see them dancing, you can see them enjoying themselves. You can feed off that energy. They can feed off your energy. It's a kind of I don't know how to describe it really. But I'm also, I suppose, in a way, like Sebastian. I think like what everyone has said, what all you guys have said, I would kind of say I'm a mixture of all of those things. But I don't think too much. I don't deliberately try to do anything. So I don't interacting with the crowd. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what that means exactly,
Well, I totally agree with you. I mean, and I think you shouldn't look at this as something you are doing consciously. It's all very intuitive, So, like you, I don't think about these things, but it's just a mechanism that is there, and it's as much as you want to be fluid with your technical aspects of your playing, like you have to know your instrument. It's also good to be aware of the mechanisms, how a performance, as a performer, how you connect to a room, how you can make everything resonate in a way that it makes sense for you,
Yeah.
It's another, it's just another bunch of buttons you can push,
To me, it's
Sometimes
important. I interact with the crowd, but I think it's natural, because I'm quite open person on my own, and like when I go out, sometimes I'm like annoying to people and like going to them and say, "Hey, what time is now?" Something like that. I'm kind of like how to say. I like to interact with people a lot, but when during the performance, usually I have eye contact for sure, and of course if I'm busy with patching, and then of course I'm there in technical. But the moment there is this moment I'm like created a break, some nice patch, and I see that the song is flowing and it's going, and I know now I have like maybe 50 seconds to dance, and so immediately I start to dance, and I always check out, and so for me this conversation with people is important. But I guess I learned that at Psytrance world, because in psychedelic scene, like it's very how to say, you see this energy interaction, what Steevio was mentioning, like that people also giving you energy and you give them energy, and in a way you really see that flowing, and I guess in my performance, it's natural. I don't do that like consciously, like, oh, now I have to interact with people. No, it's more like, hey, playing, and then, there's this moment and I see someone is like looking, and I'm like, hey, do you like it? And, things like this, like small kind of, I don't know, I see them happening. Yeah, in Mexico, I had the one I was performing, and three guys standing right in front of the decks like this, looking direct, So I had no choice. I had to like say hola and all kind of stuff. Sometimes you kind of have to. It also depends on your character. I think like I'm very open, to very talky person. Like sometimes I have opposite moments when I'm like, okay, now I need to be in my own world, and then I'm like hyper introvert. Then I'm really like, I have these two things in my life. I've noticed, but I think contacting crowd is nice, but also giving them space to meditate and to find in your music whatever they want to find in that is also, I think, is important. Like I try not to oblige people with ideas through music. I would prefer let them free,
Yeah, good point. Yeah, I mean it's you can see with people who are less experienced that they try to do too much, and they are afraid if they're not doing anything that things will fall apart. Mm-hmm. But once you become more experienced, you also become more confident that if you don't do something for a while, like if you hold off and not change, make all these changes all the time, if you just let it be for a while, just let it sort of crystallize and resonate and everything, you leave more space for people who are watching and listening to kind of create their own story and to kind of you leave room for other people's thoughts as well. In that sense, it's a conversation as having a conversation with people. If there's one person speaking all the time, there's no room for the others to say something, and it's very true for performance as well. You have to leave some space for other things to happen, and also for people to notice where they are, their surroundings. It's if it's just one massive stream of information just coming from the performer, you're basically killing the opportunity to have a more rich experience. And it becomes tiring, becomes exhausting for people to watch it.
Yeah, I think it's important to give people. The psytrance was everything around liberating yourself from isms. Like, we were really philosophically driven in that. We were like, okay, we're full of isms. Let's remove all of that. So it was this music. I spent 20 years in that world, and receiving this music in all kind of states. And so this giving space is very important, I think, at least in my vision. Mm-hmm.
Do you play with space as well, Sebastian, when you're performing? Is it something you think about?
Absolutely. I was going to say one other thing first, something that can be quite funny, actually.
Anecdotes, yay!
The feeling of being in the audience, and when you've been dancing for a long time, and you become more and more present. It kind of, someone said something about the personality. Do you have a personality when you play? And I think when you're really present, you don't think about personality. You don't think what is music and what is you, what is dance. Suddenly, you're just so close to that experience. You're moving, you're dancing. There are sounds, and suddenly it almost feels like, who is directing this? Is it me making the sounds, or is it a performer? Or what's happening? Is it my dance that kind of expresses the world around me? And for me, that feeling is to be really here. And for me, that's one of the main reasons why we should dance. And when playing a long time and you have an audience, it's quite often that you feel when a bigger part of the crowd or some people really are in that place, you can feel it on their dance. It's just, they're so present. And sometimes if you get a connection with a person like that and they dance, and then normally I try to play really like that person dance. So start to, if they raise the hand, I do something exactly like that. And suddenly you see at them like, wow, it is me doing the sound. When Sebastian played this sound, it's because I did like that. Yeah. And then I stop dancing, and then I take away the kick drum, and they're like, oh, and I start to dance, and then I put on the kick drum. I had the same feeling. I was on the train from Copenhagen. I came from a tour, was sitting on the train, and there was a mother with a child. And she was just on the phone all the time, and the child was kind of trying to get her attention, but couldn't get her attention. And then the child started to play with a doll. So she was kind of doing different movements with this doll. And then I pretended to be the doll. So when she moved the doll, I also moved. And then she moved out. And then suddenly she noticed, like, what? So she started to shake it, and then I did like this.
Sebastian messing with people's minds.
No, but then we had a 15, 30 minutes, the whole train ride, we were playing. So then she started to do when I did something. And I think this is also a form of, this is very intentional, but this playfulness can also come from being very present. And suddenly, you don't think if this is, geeky or... suddenly you just catch that moment, and it's not something I would plan to do, but suddenly in a certain moment that could just feel so beautiful. So that's a very specific interaction. But what did you ask before? that.
Yeah,
The
I'm also
space.
sometimes
The
forgetting.
space, yeah.
Me?
Yeah, I
Oh,
actually made a
I
record.
forgot. I forgot.
Yeah, the space.
You said if I played with the space. I made
Oh,
a
yeah,
record specifically investigating that.
Giving
It's
space
called
to
A
people
Place
for
for
personal
Infants.
interpretation.
No, but playing with the room, kind of like using the space where you are in and playing with that and giving attention to that. I think that's really important. And I
Oh,
made a whole
you're talking
album.
about you're talking about acoustics now, or not?
No, yeah. You said I thought that was what you.
No,
asked,
I was. I was. I meant space in a sense of the amount of information you're broadcasting, basically. You know, like just the denseness of your output.
Yeah, that's like you said. Very often
Density,
in my recordings, I intentionally leave a lot of space. Like often when I sit here in the studio, and I come to a soundscape that I like and a kind of a rhythm or something. Normally, when I feel like, wow, this is something, I want to add something. I want to sing. I want to play the violin. I want to play keys. I want to add a solo part. And very often then I feel I'm not adding that. I leave the record or the recording without that melody because exactly like you said, if I feel that, I want to sing. If I leave that for the dancers in the crowd, everyone will hear their melody. They will get an invitation to actually sing or imagine or like, and I think many people have had that, dancing the whole night and then you're like, you have all these ideas. I heard this melody, this, and that's our creativity that starts to bubble. And that's something that will not happen if we fill the space of information, like you said. But to really leave things out, it has this room to invite into creation and not think that you are the creator, but creation takes place in the listener.
Yeah, that's the beauty of abstract music. There's so much room for interpretation.
That's true. When you're letting go, that's also in a way, I think, this dancing experience, when you actually dancing for more than 20 hours through 24 hours, you become one with everything in a way. It's I think it's a spiritual experience, and I think it's also evolutionary experience in a way, because music, we are performing techno music, we are most of the time in a very hypnotic form, which comes from shamanism, the shamanic practices in a way, if we also look through that aspect. And dancing is also healing your body, because all the fluids in your body are starting to faster, like the purification starts to happen with your lymphic system, so it's not just spiritual lift up from daily worries, so to say, but it's also beneficial to your physical body in a way. So I think this process, even to a certain degree, demands the freedom of interpretation, because you travel inwards,
Yeah. What is it about repetition, though? I mean, people see pattern recognition, repetition, all that stuff is very. It's just how the brain works, I guess.
Yeah. It's cycle. It's clock. Tick tick tick. The heart also, like it's also pumps, huh? So we are kind of naturally. There is cycles, day, night. Winter, summer. It's in the form of cycles. So the body also has those natural cycles, and I think music can, for sure, reflect those internal cycles, and this is where the healing starts, because music is absolutely healing power. It withholds healing properties, so to say. It heals your mind, it heals your spirit, it heals your body. And so this is actually studied absolutely scientifically these days, and it's interesting turn.
This one is interesting. Repetition silences the mind. Maybe that's true. I mean, when you have something your brain can kind of latch onto, you kind of join the autobahn to sort of infinity, right? And everything is sort of pointing in the same direction, and it focuses your mind in a particular way. So yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah, like tool of focusing. You know this old meme when you see the Neanderthal and like first day in Ableton and there's 2 stones and you see with 2 stones. You probably know it. Like it's very old joke. First day in Ableton, the guy is sitting with 2 stones like this, you know, and so it's kind of draws a perspective, you know, in a way of what it is. Yeah, it can be interesting.
Ooh, a long question from Architect. I mean, let's say hi to everybody who's just posting comments, and we're always ignoring them. Sorry about that, people, but let's take this one. In live streaming performance, the visual aspect is very big, and for some performers, an extra thing to control or play with. Are the guests today doing anything with the visual aspects of their performance?
Well, I use makeup. I have to, you know. No, I don't have to do anything actually. But this part I cover. But
have you done any streaming? Any streamed sets recently? Like
me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was the question. I think that was the question. You know, is there anything you? Do you pay attention to the visual aspects, basically?
Me personally not, but those who are like saying, hey, we would like to stream and we want to add visual stuff to it, please send us just very pure video. So me personally, visual graphics is, I think it's entire profession. Of course, in the modular world, you can get a little device and it would transcribe all the audio into the images. And so there's new devices like that. And I wanted to purchase one for Modular Moon when we make parties, you know, to put it on the stage. So to pass through the signal just to have a generating imaginary part. But usually I prefer to leave this part to someone who is professional. And if I organize an event, of course, I always add visual or any decorations or any like visual part is important. When I perform personally, I don't, but like for instance, this Eye Museum is going to do the film festival. They're invited to perform, but they wanted to have Dusha music, so it's going to be also a challenging step for me to add a vocal on top. And then they invited a person who would do all the visual part for it. So that's gonna be new for me because it's in a way a collaboration with the person who's doing the visual art. So they really want to do it like conceptually kind of thing, and it's a new thing for me. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, there's so many things you can do to with the combination of sound and visuals. Personally, for the projects that we've done, we actually chose to make the visual very unimportant. Like we do the streams. I mean, even though the people are on camera and sort of jamming, you can observe what they're doing. But we chose to make it more from like like an observing perspective rather than putting big lights on them and make it like a show. You know what I mean? So it's sort of like there's a distance from you take a distance from the people, so they feel more comfortable just being themselves. And it's also the streams we did are not supposed to be representing a club show or an actual live show. They are basically just studio jams, and people are fly on the wall just observing what people are doing in the studio without being too intrusive. So it becomes sort of nerve-wracking, if you know what I mean. So it's like from a safe distance in black and white, very observing, and it works for the kind of stuff we do. So it's like anti-visuals, basically.
You see, it's your own concept that you're following, yeah. Because some other streamers they deliberately would want to have visuals. So it depends on the organizers very often, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that, my situation is a bit different because I always work with my partner, Susie B. She's a visual artist. Now the thing is, we haven't done any live streams. We've kind of stayed away from them a little bit, but we have recorded our sessions in, you know, our jams, and recorded them and put them on YouTube and this sort of thing. I'm not sure why we haven't done any live streams yet. I think we were about to embark on live streams last year, and then all of a sudden COVID happened, and everyone seemed to be doing live streams, and it sort of felt like it was a bit flooded. You know, there just seemed to be lots of stuff up there, and we just felt that we'd get lost amongst it. So, but we will do some at some point. But basically, I don't play unless I play with Susie B. So it's an AV show basically, and you know, we work together. One. Sorry,
a beautiful one.
Beautiful one.
Oh, thank you. And we just decided to do this quite a long time ago. Actually, I think it must have been. Well, we embarked on it in the early 2000s. The idea of it. But back then, the software wasn't there. The computers maybe weren't fast enough, and so we at one point there was no software for visuals, and we were going to pay someone to make some software, and then just around that time, someone came out with some visual software, and we were like, oh, well, there you go. We don't need to pay someone to do it anymore, and since then we've just kept on developing it. And Susie does animations, so she does hand-drawn animations, and then she puts them into Resolume, which is a visual VJ software, and puts digital effects on, and so, you know, but we're still developing it. We've been doing it for a long time. We've been doing it for as an actual AV show. We've been doing it for about 10 years.
So how does it work in terms of connection? Are you both improvising on your own pace and sort of responding to each other, or is there an actual technical connection between the two setups?
Well, when we first started, we were using MIDI messages to trigger things in the visuals. So obviously we'd be synced up with the MIDI clock. But we also had MIDI messages. So if there was a change in the music, we would send a MIDI message to some filter on the visuals or something. And so we tried all of that. And then we felt it was a bit restrictive for Susie because she wants to improvise as well. So it was a bit like she would have to, you know, things would happen suddenly that she wasn't expecting or something. And so we decided to let her to do it in a freestyle. And so all we do is link up with MIDI clock, and, you know, and she works to that and jams along with me. And we don't plan anything out. So, you know, she doesn't really know what I'm going to play. I don't know what she's going to play, but we're so used to working together that it sort of works, you know. But we want to develop it further and maybe go back to the ideas of having triggers and things from the music. Maybe not very strict ones, just things that might make a small change or something.
Yeah, you can choose to make systems like that are still generating all the information from your setup, but if you find a way to basically just make them available as a data stream, and then for Susie to choose at any given moment to use it or not, you know, that would be the ideal thing. I've done a live show in the beginning of when I think that was the summer last year, where I worked with a group of guys who designed a lighting system. So like only lights, right? So no displays or anything, just objects basically. And they had a system which allowed them to take anything from my setup, like the individual audio streams and some MIDI clock and whatever, and they had a way to bring that into their control situation, or they could just ignore it. And so they improvised themselves. So they performed the light piece, but sometimes they took little pieces of data to make the interaction between the music more clear. So it's that's actually the best way to do it, I guess.
Yeah, I think I think we started off like that, and then we came away from it a little bit, but we always had it in our minds that we were going to go back to it. And I think Susie's concentrated a lot on her actual art, on the actual drawing of the animations and putting ideas into it. And she's been doing a lot of environmental stuff, and there's always a theme behind everything she does. So she's put a lot of energy into that, and we've decided to be a bit more like free form with it for a while. So that's where we're at with it. But yeah, I totally agree. We've thought about it, and we haven't. We will be doing stuff like that at some point. I think time just goes by so quickly. We sort of had a 5-year plan, and then that stretched out to 10 years. And yes, thank you. We're still developing it. It's the same with me and the improvisation on the modular. I change it round every week. I'm pulling modules out and replacing them. I'm just never satisfied. I'm always trying to improve it. And Susie's the same with the visuals. She's always wanting it better, more resolution. She's had to buy better computers. The software's getting better. So it's getting to the point now where everything's almost perfect. We've just got to see what we can do with it, and so yeah, it's. Oh, hey,
Dennis.
Hi, Dennis. It's like I say, it's a bit different for us because of that. But we haven't. The main thing is we haven't done any live streams, so that's something for the future, something else to do. I think we just seem to always be busy doing something. We always seem to, it's been weird because of the COVID thing, having no gigs. We haven't done a gig. The last gig I did was with Sebastian in Colombia. He played there too, and that was in February last year. And it's kind of, you'd think in that time you would have so much time to do stuff, but it's just gone. And I haven't really had, the inspiration at first wasn't there. I wanted to, we decided we wanted to grow all our own food. So we started doing that. We hadn't done that before, and we built a polytunnel, and we landscaped a garden to grow vegetables. And so we spent a lot of time doing that, and we only started getting back into the music and the visuals in the autumn. So we're just getting back into the swing of it, really. And then we'll think about doing live streams and stuff, and and then the gigs are going to come back, and so we're never going to get it done. But that's the idea, really.
Cool. Yeah, you just said something that sparked my mind, and it's pretty much the fate of being an artist or a musician. You're never satisfied.
Perfectionism is torturing you.
No, I guess you can only be temporarily satisfied. It's funny. I think maybe we should get into this subject. I was reminded by this that all of us have some kind of education thing going on at the moment, and one thing that I run into with a lot of students is that they want things to be perfect, and there's just no way. There's no such thing as perfect, So you can spend days and years making, tweaking things and being not satisfied, but at some point you have to draw the line and move on, right? So that is something that I hear a lot from people who are getting stuck and need help to be more creative. this sort of misconception that it needs to be perfect.
Well, it has to be perfect in a certain way if you don't want to pick on certain frequencies or things like this. But in the sense of education, I've noticed also the moment the modular moon started to function and the students started to roll in, the first contact that started to happen. And the first thing I noticed that it's mainly, first of all, again, coming back to the topic, that is psychological work again, like removing the frustration nearby the equipment, removing this dull thinking, because for instance I came from also making music in Logic, arranging everything in the perfect sense, and then you suddenly go into modular, where you are infinite it's
pretty much it's the opposite way, yeah.
And so you need to rewire the brain, and it takes time until that start to happen to people. So yeah, I've noticed that as well. This I call it psychological work, the removing the fear of, or shame. A lot of people are very shy that other people will hear them touching and not making immediately hit. So you really see that it's that people have these mental blocks, and you start to you immediately see the person, and it's all in the face, written. And so first thing I start to address those moments, and I say, okay, I see you have fear in here, let's talk about that first, and then I will tell you the technical side, how you can drop how you can do what you asked me about, So yeah, in a sense, yeah, it's both, you work individually with every person, and it's like chirurgy, everyone comes to you with their problem, in a way, and there you go, you start to cut, open it up, remove all the what is disturbing the person to actually open up, and then clean it all up, put a healing balm, stitch it back, and off you go. And you see the reflection, you see it through the, at least in my case, I am focused only on modular world, only in Eurorack. Okay, of course we want to go to 5U, to bigger formats, but that's which is also having modular format, but that's kind of different story. We focus on Eurorack. And you really see through 5 months of classes, they come to you with an empty case or no case at all, and then suddenly this start to puzzle, and you see that it's like reflection of their mind, in a way. It's interesting journey. It's interesting to you really feel happy when you really see the person is happy. You really start. Yeah,
I agree. It's a very satisfying, fulfilling thing to see others making progress, because you are able to sort of put them on the right path or something. It's a really rewarding experience.
Mm-hmm. It is, yeah. For example, sometimes usually I take 5 months of teaching, and then I take a month of break. And then during the second cycle, I call Jacobo and I say, Jacobo, you're doing the second cycle because I want to make music now. So I always balance it out, because at some moment you're like, oh, okay, I'm really teaching and not really doing music now. And I actually, you start to feel that. And forgot what I wanted to say.
Well, maybe explain to people what is the school. It's Modular Bloom, right? That's the project.
Modular Moon.
Moon, sorry.
Modular Bloom, yeah, it blooms. Thank you. But it's
maybe a good one for a T-shirt. Modular Bloom.
That's a good one. It's actually Tim Burton has this movie. There was this Mr. Bloom, when you see the big fish. It's called. One of my favorite movies also. But anyway, shifting to another topic.
But it's a physical place, right? So it's not an online thing.
It's absolutely physical.
Right, so people visit there, yeah.
Yeah, of course with Corona you have to adapt. And for instance, that round a lot of students were stuck at the border. Alex is also here. He asked me to say hi. I tell him hi. Alex Paulos is one of our students. His teacher is Jacobo. I really don't like online thing. I'm really I can't wait until we can take all those mouse masks and put the fire gun and burn that, and come back to our normal life.
Of course, nothing beats actual human contact, but that's just the way it is at the moment. So at least we do have the internet, Imagine this would happen. It would have happened 20 years ago. We would have all been stuck and depressed. Now we can actually hook up, and be with other people.
Sometimes I'm afraid. Go ahead.
For me, with the educational perspective, which we started before the pandemic, so that was a big intention we had earlier than that, and with Circle of Life had workshops, and the plan was to have physical retreats here in the woods in the hotel that I run with my wife. And suddenly the pandemic came and was like, because my idea was also really physical, to meet people, to do it in a space, because
sure, that's always the way better. Yeah,
it's something very special. But I was so amazed because we started then, and it was also a lot thanks to my manager, because we run Circle of Life together, and he said, you love to teach. Now is the opportunity for you to do it online. And I was like, yeah, but I don't like it online. Let's try it. Give it a try. And we said, okay. So we started in Bloom, and we had the first cycle, which Steevio also joined to check out. And it was much, much better than I ever expected. And it's not an offline thing. It's interactive. It's once a week. It's 11 episodes. So it's almost 3 months together with a group of people. So we have 35 in each class. And what happened there, what I felt is that I really realized the positive side of it. Because I still think that it's something special doing it physical. But now, like, we started my 4th cycle yesterday, and now I have 3 parallel classes a week. And so it's almost over 100 people.
Wow.
And we have people from China, from Japan, Australia, Georgia, Turkey, Iran, Colombia, Brazil, Ecuador, Chile, Canada. These people would never, ever be able to come to my hotel in Sweden, pay the flights and pay a fee of €1,000 to attend, with food and catering. And, it's very expensive. Now I can give certain people a scholarship for free, and they can join with absolutely not paying anything. And that wouldn't be possible if it was physical. So I really see also, like, I think that maybe we shouldn't go into the COVID thing, but there are things starting now that can be blended with the things we did before. And you can take and continue with the things that actually really worked. And then start with other stuff as well and find a balance, like what are the good things with an online perspective.
Very true.
You can meet people. Yeah. You can start the process, and then for people who really wants to go deeper, then you can meet, and then you can do things together, for example. So I'm in that way, I think that's one of the only good thing that happened to me in this pandemic situation, is that really, putting it together and be, in a way, forced a little bit to be creative and really do something which will stay. So
at least it's a way out at the moment, of course. I hope we will go out from that soon enough, and I think the future events will be a hybrid between physical life and, again, I don't think that people will refuse the streaming immediately after COVID will stop, because I think it will still have its own power in a way, because there's other things opened up also. For instance, Clubhouse thing, where you meet up all the other people from all over the world, and that wouldn't be possible if there was no this situation. It's these crises, they generate those ideas on the edge, like we call, and because you have to react to what's going on in the world and find the way out from that. So yeah, but of course my personal wish is to be back into the forest, you know, to the party, and we are together and we are hugging again, you know, like it's really also worrying me honestly at the moment because we're getting used to this distancing thing, and that's for me is a bit like I started to notice that from myself as well, you know, you meet up people and they're like, oh wait a second, like should I shake your hand or not? You know, like it's kind of like I think the key here is the balance, so we don't lose the harmony, you know, between those two, because we are very fast going into all this counterparts. You know, human mind is very easily going into negative to positive, and so yeah, the balance is somewhere in between.
Yeah, I mean, there are many good things I think that came out of it, because it showed flexibility of people, you know, and yeah, a lot of things that are happening now are basically invented to overcome this problem, but are very valuable in their own right, you know. So yeah, I think there's Sven van der Heijden, it would be a shame to lose all this when we go back to normal. Yeah, exactly. Well, we're not going to lose everything. I think Sebastian is right, and it will be. We will use the things that we've learned from it, and yeah, and then do the things that we want to do if you know, all the things are sort of all the restrictions are lifted. You know, I think there's going to be a combination.
What do you think, guys? What would be the first? How do you would see the, like, maybe you have a certain vision, like a prediction, like imagine the situation?
If I would be able to predict it, I would not be doing this, and I would be on the stock market. You know, I don't know, but no, but I have no idea how it's going to go. But you know, it's yeah, I don't want to get too much into the whole COVID thing, but it is just to me, it's really good to see people connecting in different ways. And one thing that strikes me a lot is that you know, a lot of things that used to have a lot of hurdles, like connecting with other people, are way easier now, because everybody's in the same boat, and there's all these layers of formality that are stripped away. You can basically, the playing field is pretty much level, you know, and that is showed or caused a lot of beautiful initiatives and projects, you know, that eventually connect people in a different way, which is amazing.
I think one thing that forced or opened the door is that some of us a bit older persons, that for me, like, I didn't know what Discord was. I didn't know what Twitch was before the pandemic. You know, I was not in that world. I don't care about these. I don't care about these things very much. And suddenly now, that's normal for me. Now I have a big community for our In Bloom school on Discord, and suddenly it's. I think what can be good here is that generations will also be able to meet, because if you talk to people that are between 12 and 18, all these digital forums and platforms are completely normal. And I think one thing that is a problem in the world is when generations separate, and we need integration between cultures. We need integration between age groups, generations, etc. And the pandemic also forced some of us older artists to actually look into the eyes and the habits of younger people, and we can learn from each other, and that creates balance. It's like I heard, was a few years ago, was on the news in Sweden, this whole debate on, like, oh, how much screen time should your kids have, and you know, how should you ban them from the games, etc., etc. You know, it's, when you have kids, that naturally becomes a question in your life. How shall you address that, and how shall you approach that? And then it was this group of parents that was like, yeah, every week we meet with our kids and we let them choose what games we're going to play online, because we don't want to create this separation where games are bad, you know, digital platforms are bad, and we have no insight, no clue what it is. We just put this pressure of guilt on them. And that's something that I really connected to, and also something I do with my kids. Like I play, dopamine games like Brawl Stars with my son, and we collect gems, and we want to get new, characters. And suddenly, you can talk about it. Suddenly, you can also share the feelings of, oh, I'm really hooked on this. What's addiction? How can you share your values with other people, other cultures, from different generations, if you do not share a platform together with? So I think this have also helped us to meet in these places, and hopefully also us kind of Stone Age people have something to give teenagers.
Well, we're not that old. But I can reflect a lot, because actually my son is like, he didn't go to sleep. I hear it now. He's still like Roblox, but I agree on that, because this guilt thing, it was also kind of that what I was detecting in myself. I was like, maybe I don't pay him enough attention, or maybe I'm too busy with my music. If kind of like it's very comfortable, he's in the iPad and I can be busy with my stuff. So I guess this guilt thing is basically our own guilt. Then we start to take out on the project on our kids. But actually, if to look at that, he is super advanced already now. He can install, and he knows how half of the things he knows about programming. I have no clue how he learned that. So it's kind of like, in a way, accepting the progress, and this online streaming mentality that we have a possibility to share now, which is actually, like you said, absolutely normal for generations like our kids. I think, it's a form of progress of society in a way, that, indeed, the world will be way more virtually and way more introvert in the future. Like virtual reality is going to be also advanced, and they also keep on developing platforms where you can have the avatar and all these things, So I think it's trajectory that the human society took according to the technology progress, and it goes naturally. Again, there must be a balance, because sometimes I see too much. Like, for instance, I didn't know that he was waking up at night and taking iPad at some point, and I accidentally saw that by going to the toilet. I see the light in the room. I'm like, amazing. He was all this time sneakily taking an iPad, and I had no clue, So that becomes an addiction way. So I had to talk to, we have social helpers, psychologists, who can tell you what exactly is going on and how you can deal with that. So then I talk to him and I say, okay, we have this, now 8 o'clock, it's time to sleep. Please don't take iPads at night. I don't feel very nice about it. I had to do all the conversation with him. And of course, being a little bit strict for a couple of weeks and taking iPad, hiding it and stuff like that. So there's this, again, question of balance, it can easily go different ways. And I think in a way we have opportunity also, because we can project our own stuck the social platforms situation, and then maybe be a bit more cautious for the future generations, so they would not be too deep in that, because there still must be balance, we're still physical beings, and we shouldn't the danger, I guess, could be where you start to confuse the virtual world with the physical world, and so there must be this healthy balance, I think.
It's all about human connection in the end, So whatever tools they come along, as long as the connection is genuine, I don't think it's something to be afraid of. But anyway, I wanted to ask Steevio, because you've had this education program going on as well, right? And you do one-on-one classes. That's what you just told us. No groups, just one-on-one.
Yeah, just one-on-one. I do it through In Bloom, the Circle of Life thing Sebastian set up. And I've only just started. I've been doing it a couple of months. And it's really interesting. The strangest thing is that a lot of the guys have basically seen my videos, and they've gone out and bought some of the modules. This is before I started doing it. They've gone out and bought certain modules that I've got, And the first thing they ask me always is, "Oh, well, how did you get that sound from that module?" And so it's been quite easy for me because it's quite easy to connect with them because they've already got the modules, and so it's been a lot easier than I was expecting. Because when I first started doing it, I was a bit nervous that maybe the guys who I was trying to teach had completely different setups to me with new modules that I didn't know anything about. And because most of my gear I bought at the beginning when I started, and that was 12 years ago, and I've obviously bought newer modules since then, but the bulk of my modules are the old ones, and it's kind of slightly old school modular. And I was worried that the new guys coming in would have bought all the latest sort of boutique modules that I wouldn't have a clue what they were. So I asked all my students beforehand to tell me what gear they've got. They send me photographs or modular grid patterns to show me what they've got, and I found that most of them had similar modules to me, and there's been a few guys that had completely different set of gear to what I've got, but it hasn't turned out to be a problem because all I do is I just go and check it out and see what it does, and I can give
it's
them
actually
advice.
so it's a fairly technical kind of class then what you do.
It is pretty much purely technical,
right?
Well, technical, not technical in the sense that we're discussing the ins and outs of individual modules. It's more about how to use your rig in an improvisational way. And so I'm explaining my routings and stuff, because when you look at a bunch of modules on modular grid, you don't necessarily know what the person's doing with that. Everyone can do completely different things with the same bunch of modules. So a lot of the time the guys are wanting to know, well, how are you routing your sequences? How are you doing your pitch CVs for your VCOs? And, so it's not too difficult for me to teach this sort of thing, because I'm sort of almost teaching them how I'm doing it, but I don't want that. I don't necessarily want that to be, I don't want to say this is the only way you can do it, but I'm trying to sort of keep it a bit open. So I'll say, well, this is this.
But it's very logical that people who are reaching out to you and trying to learn from your knowledge, want to hear this from you, so they have a starting point. It doesn't necessarily mean that you get like Steevio clones all over the world. No, but it gives them like something to work with, and then once they get a head around it, they can sort of venture off in their own direction, I guess.
I mean, most of the guys I've heard some of the music they do, so that it's not the same music necessarily. I think it's just techniques that they've seen on videos, and they think, well, how's he doing that, or what's he doing there? And I'm just explaining how I do it, but I'm not trying to say this is the only way. I'm saying, this is what you can do, but you could also try this or try that. And it's quite often some of the guys are asking which modules, which sequencer would you suggest I buy? And I mean, I know what sequencer I use 4 sequencers. They're all exactly the same, and they're Dofa sequencers, and they're huge. And that's no good to most people because they've got small cases like skiff cases and things like this. So I say to them, well, look, this is what I'm doing with it. This is what's good about it. If you can find something that fits in a quarter of the space that does something similar, then that's great. And I've already bought those modules. I've had them since I started, really, and I love them, and I'm not really wanting to change that. But I realise that now you can get things that are much smaller that do almost the same thing. So I'm just sort of pointing them in a direction, really. It's more about how I route things than the actual modules themselves, which people seem to want to know about, and how to make it improvisational in the sense that you just reach out and you make some music without thinking. You don't have to think, oh, right, I'm going to program this into here and program that into there. And I think most of the guys that say that that's why they got into modular, because they got sick of using a computer and they didn't want to sit in front of a computer. They wanted to, get into more sort of physical side of it. And I mean, as an example, I'm sitting on a chair here, and I have to confess, this is the first time ever I've had a chair in my studio, ever. I've never had a chair in my studio. This is the first time. It really is. That's the honest truth. And as you can see, the speakers are quite high up because I stand up and dance when I'm making the music. So, you in that sort of scenario, you can't be concentrating on something. It has to be sort of out in front of you, and you've got to be able to just go with the flow with it. So this is what I'm trying to get over to the guys that come on the course, on the one-to-ones. They just that, if you're making dance music, you've got to dance really while you're doing it. It's, it's sort of, because then you sort of get into it in a different way. You kind of flow with it. So I'm just trying to show them how I do it so that it's not difficult to do that, because it could be, if you have tiny little modules with tiny little knobs and you're trying to jam on them, then it can go wrong. And so I suppose, I'm just giving an overall overview of improvisation with them. So
It's funny to see you say that about no chair in your in your studio. It does make a difference, a hell of a lot of difference, how you can actually access your gear. Whether it's on a desk or is it high up, or are you sitting down or standing up? It makes a lot of difference. I know I had studios most of the time. Everything was based, around a screen with the speakers, and then gear was sort of on the sides, But now I've completely abandoned that idea, and it's the speakers and the computer kind of position is still there, but where the music is made is maybe you can see behind me. There's a massive table just in the middle of the room, and for every project I build a new setup, and those can live there for, I don't know, days or weeks or whatever, however long it takes, or until I get bored with it. And then I just strip everything down, build a new setup. So it's like my way of restricting, but also just to have, this feeling of you actually working on a project with a certain amount of gear, with a certain idea, a certain system, and then just squeeze everything out of it that's possible, and then just move on and try to something completely different. But it's all standing up, just behind it. Gives me the feeling I'm a scientist. You know what I mean? Like, I'm working on a big table, and it's just a much nicer feeling. And then you can walk around. You have a very different. Very different atmosphere in the room. If there's more activity, it's more sort of. I don't know. It works for me. Works a lot better than sitting down and just always be in the same position.
That's interesting. I've never seen anyone do what you're doing before. That's really, really good idea. I suppose in a way.
Sorry. Go.
No, in a way, that's what this stuff is over this side. You can't see it, also it's down here, but it's like it's a bit like your table. I just try new things out, and then if something works, I think, right, okay, I've got to somehow incorporate that into the main rig. So the minute I've got this little thing going on here, it's connected to that, but I can't take that out live with me. So I've either got to incorporate it and take some other things out of there and to put that in. So it's a sort of similar sort of idea, but having it on a big table in front of you like that is a really cool idea. I really like that.
Yeah,
you don't have a neck pain?
Sorry?
You don't have a neck pain? Because I was thinking maybe to do like on the wall, to put them like a, like a painting. on the wall, and then you can patch. And I thought to put the speakers like that, like because I started to notice like all this starts a little bit. So I saw
okay.
Jan Willem, a friend of mine, he does this. It's a brand. Why am I bad with names? But anyway, he made like a Doopfer case i100. He just attached it to the wall, and I thought, wow, that's brilliant. You can just stand, patch, go aside, listen, you know, and then because I've noticed all this starts to hurt with time, you know. Like I use nerd sequencer, so sometimes I have to do a lot of programming inside of it, and I was like. At some points, even taking system to the couch because I couldn't all the time. You know, you're physical. You get tired a little bit. So yeah, it's like I thought would be interesting. I bought like
having a modular on the wall is interesting as well. Yeah, it's a nice idea. Yeah, but the table is not just for me. I mean, I do a lot of collaborations, and I just like to have the room. If you have a setup, if you make a setup together to do a collaboration, you can actually face each other. You know, because you're having a conversation basically. So it's nice to see the other person's energy and stuff like that. You know.
That's true.
And there's just way too much gear in the lab here to have all connected at one go, you know. And so if you know, I had setups like this in the past, you know, and then you want to use the filter of this machine, and you have to run for the mute button on the other side of the room, blah blah blah. You know, it's all just impractical. So I just narrowed my stuff down to one setup that is in one place for that project, and when it's done, everything is back on the shelves. You know, there's no fixed connection. Yeah, exactly. Actually, we're nearing 2 hours. I wanted to give Sebastian an opportunity to explain a little bit more about the educational program. I was actually wondering, how do you deal with so many people in one class? How do you manage that?
You mean 35 people?
Yeah. How does it work technically?
No, I have quite a clear. You know, the course is it's an introduction class, which is more of, you know, everyone getting a chance to talk to each other, introduce themselves, sharing a little bit. Also, me kind of going through all the technical aspects and how to raise your hand and how I suggest how to.
So everybody is there at the same time in one screen then.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It's on Zoom.
Okay.
But then the other 10 episodes are quite focused. So it's 10 different topics, which I go through. Everything from improvisation, playing live, my studio setup, meditation, nature, all kind of different topics. But in the class, I really encourage people to ask questions. There is always a lot of slots for people to ask questions. I try not to use the chat. I try to encourage people to unmute themselves and ask the questions, because for me that is really the deal breaker to kind of crack the digital distance. When I feel someone is actually asking a question, there is a real curiosity. It's much easier for me to actually share something that I feel for them. So normally and I try to have the classes, the main topic, for 2 hours. So what I try to say, I try to keep for 2 hours, but normally the classes are 3 to 4 hours. So in the end, I also stay much longer if people have questions, to really give room for these 35 people. So everyone that wants to ask questions have the room in each class to actually do that. But like in all physical classrooms, you have different personalities. Some people ask a lot of questions, other people are much more shy. Some people prefer to do it in the chat, and then of course I can do that. But so far I haven't felt a problem with 35 people. And it's quite amazing how, and also now we have a community, so everyone that joins a class, and it's not only me, it's, you know, Steevio, Frank Wiederman from have his mentorship, Erica from Detroit, she just started her mentorship. Pepe, Voices from the Lake, is starting his. Matt Carmel is going to start his. We have a booking agent, Alma from the previous Backroom, she is starting a whole course about how to do your bookings, how to be an agent. So we have a lot of different teachers, and all the people that goes to a course can join our community. So now we have quite a big community with people kind of joined together in a Discord forum, but all kind of different things are happening in this community. You know, people are starting groups together, live streams every week, people invite each other for podcasts, and you know, and people are from all around the world. So, you know, all these things start to spark. And it often starts somehow in these Zoom classes. So people already start to feel a connection. You know, someone asks a question, another person get really curious about that, and then they continue these conversations in the Discord chat after the class. So in that way, it's not also an isolated thing where you have a class once a week and then you don't meet these people. There is a chance to actually meet these people outside of the classes as well.
Yeah, perfect. I mean, that's exactly the same way we do it. You know, we have we have this series, the Twiddlers Hangout, and we have this private Twiddlers Hangout where people can join. You know, not in public, but just talking to me, and basically they pay for 1 hour, but they can stay around when the other people having their hours, so they stay around in the background, and so they can listen into the other classes basically with other individuals. So they are one-on-one in a sense, but other people are following it. You know, the people who are in that same day joining the private Twiddlers Hangout, they are basically getting 3 or 4 hours because there's more people.
That's a really interesting approach.
Yeah, I mean, why would you just say, you know, okay, your hour is over, bye. You know what I mean? It's if they can stay around and learn from each other, that's cool too. And then exactly like your situation with the Twiddlers Hangout, it continues on the Discord server when we are not streaming, and it's a really nice community, and all these initiatives happen there. There's, you know, people hooking up with each other, remixing each other, doing streams together. So it's a really nice thing. It's really, really rewarding and encouraging to see that's happening.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, people, 2 hours. Usually, what we do. I mean, I can talk to you guys forever.
Let's continue.
Let's continue. Yeah, maybe another.
There was a question actually. Oh yeah.
Okay. Let's do the last question then. What one equipment would our guests choose to take with them in a spaceship? I guess that's the question, you know, your desert island record or your desert island synth kind of question.
Well, I don't have that problem. I have 7U case, which is, you know, customized for my own performance. So I guess I will take that. It has everything, interface, line in, whatever, you know, so it's completely
I would bring a piano.
Piano.
But that's heavy, eh? That's heavy for stage. You have to think about that.
I once had the idea to build my studio inside a sea container, so I could basically relocate whenever I wanted. I never did it, but that would be my desert island solution. Just bring my container.
But there's problem. There is no electricity on the desert island.
Yeah. Well, on the desert island where I go to, there is electricity. Trust me.
You can do the bicycle thing. As a Dutch, you know, you have a lot of time.
Otherwise, Anyway, Steve, any idea?
That's a difficult one. The thing is, you can't just take one. You can't just take one module, can you? It's not going to be much use.
It's pretty pointless.
I would just take these 2 case, or maybe just 1 case. If I'm only allowed 1 case, then this case here.
Take the favorite one. That's going to be a hard choice, I think.
Yeah. Well, this one's the melodic case and the tuned percussion, and this one is just like percussion that's not tuned. So kick drums tuned, but hi-hats and all that, snare drums and stuff. And this other case is all anything that's tuned, anything that's got any pitch CVs in it. So yeah. So I definitely think I would take that one.
Yeah.
That one.
Fair enough. That's a fair answer. Yeah. Yeah. Usually we spend the last few minutes giving everybody in the chat an opportunity to plug their stuff. Like, where can we find your music? Where can we find your classes? What do you want people to know about you now? Right. You can basically plug whatever you want. Maybe we start with Sebastian, as he's sitting next to me over there.
Can tap into you. Oh, I feel the connection.
You can shake hands.
Aha, be careful.
Yeah. High five.
Our educational platform, Circle of Life in Bloom. You just search for Circle of Life in Bloom, and it comes up. There you can read about my course and all the other teachers and everything we do there. On my own website, sebastianmullaert.com, you have links and all the stuff I'm doing at the moment. Some nice releases coming up. I have quite a few projects together with Dorisborg, Alex at the moment, coming on some different labels. Also have a new album in the making with a classical ensemble, which are coming out later. We have a concert at the concert hall in Malmö in May.
Awesome.
It's going to be streamed, but some different things. But I try to keep it updated on my sebastianmullaert.com website.
I was actually going to ask you about the classical thing. I totally didn't have time to fit that in, but maybe next time. Yeah, very intriguing. Yeah. Yeah, cool. Thanks, Sebastian.
Yep.
Steevio, anything you want to point out to people?
Just reiterating what Seb said about the In Bloom. My courses, my one-to-one sessions are on the In Bloom, Circle of Life In Bloom. And I've got an album on the go at the moment. I'm busy working on it. It's hopefully going to be out in a few months, but I can't really say anything about that at the moment. My website isn't really in action at the moment, so there's no point in plugging it really.
Well, you have a Bandcamp with all your releases, right? So
but that's probably. I mean, my SoundCloud page is probably where you'll be able to listen to pretty much everything. So that's just Steevio, SoundCloud Steevio, and my Bandcamp page again is just Steevio, and I'm putting everything I'm putting out now. I'm putting on Bandcamp, so that's the best place if you want to buy any of my tunes. That's the best place for it. And there's vinyl and digital, so yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool, great. Yeah, I would definitely encourage people to have a look. Sandra is posting the link now to your Bandcamp page, Steevio. So have a look there. It's modular improvisations can be found there.
Yeah, it's not a comprehensive amount of stuff. It's select things from different periods, and I put all my new stuff up there. So anything I'm bringing out now will be up there. So yeah, you will see it as it comes out. Cool.
Awesome. Good to know. Anna, anything you want to share?
Yes. I want to show the book, of course. So the modular moon is a method of learning modular, and it addresses a person with zero experience. So this method is described in the book. We have printed 1,000 more. So first 500 is sold, and there is 1,000 more we printed. So grab yours because all these boxes in my office are annoying. So, there it is. It's on the website and you can find it. And it's connected to the platform where every patch in the book is shown. So basically this method is addressing the functions of building blocks instead of the brands. And so first we explain how the VCO is working. First we start with physics of sound. Then we shift into Eurorack, explaining what is Eurorack actually, what is refers to the whole industry. And then we go to building blocks, block per block, VCO, VCF, VCA, all the basic things you cover through the book. We deliberately did chapter per chapter, and it's theory plus practice. So the moment you read something, you immediately practice that. And on the platform, you see extra explanations, extra little tips, extra bonus patches. So basically, this will bring you from zero to hero. And so I would like to highlight that. I didn't write it alone. I wrote it with Speed Johnston, as a good friend of mine and a big professional. He's working in, they're creating mixing consoles for Arena Amsterdam, you know, big places. So, yeah, so take that. That's number one. And yeah, it's available also if you're not in Amsterdam, because of course we have classes in Amsterdam and in Mexico at the moment. So also if you speak Spanish and really want to learn modular, there is classes now running at Mexico City, also through Zoom, same as Sebastian was describing. It's full, it's around 30 people, and they control it, so it's really you have a lot of feedback with the teachers and stuff like that. Our Amsterdam section is of course more into physical world, and I do also online things at the moment, time after time, but I'm more into actual, like, a real world person. So if online, then there's Jacobo and other teachers which people can apply. And another thing I want to show right now, this is a new thing that's in my life and I'm really happy about it. I collaborate right now with the manufacturers of synthesizers from Russia, and I have a possibility to infuse my ideas around the performance and around actually synthesizer architecture into actual creating those devices. So I found those guys through Zweiman. Maybe you know Wowat Zweiman when he was still alive. We were friends, and he is also a Russian-speaking person. So at some point he showed me this company. It's called Sound Objects, and they are known only in Russia, and mostly the panel was also in Russian, so it was not really, like, there was no connection to Western world. So I found them, and I asked them to translate the panel, and I asked them to create systems that are Eurorack compatible and that would be price available. And so there was a lot of points where I wanted to match, you know, because I see people who are coming into modular world. I see it's expensive hobby, so you know,
it's a time and money vortex for sure.
Absolutely, yeah, you know. So in a way.
So, but is this something you're currently working on, or can we already find something about that online or in real life?
It's already physically present. So they created 5 items for me as a starting set. So they are available on pre-order. So there is already 5 in physical world. At the moment, I'm writing a manual for that, and manual is also educative because this manual I built with a thought to teach people to understand the synthesizer through the signal flow, through inside, you know, where you see how the electricity is actually flowing and how the interactions, when we talk about pre-wired configurations like that, is actually happening inside. So the manual itself is also educative in a way. So let's say I would point out there's this VCO, let's talk about this block. We see all the signal flow, and then we see the modules, the blocks that are influencing the current block. So in the manual, I started to build up this manual so it will be also educative in a way, you know? So it will teach you to understand the synthesis from the inside of it, because that's where actually the magic happens, you know? When you know what LFO mode you need to put on in able to achieve something, so you need to really look inside, you know, in the matrix itself. So this manual in that sense is unique, I guess, because I realized that it's important for people to understand that will make their work even more confident, you know. So that's a new thing that comes in my life right now, and I'm very happy about it. And we want to build up educational systems as well. Also super affordable for people. You know, we opened a section in Mexico, and you understand that the price tag in other countries is very different than in Europe or America, you know. So in that moment, yeah, I'm kind of like trying to balance out and give opportunity to people. In Mexico, there was feedbacks people never knew that existed, you know. So it's called Sound Objects. I can
Sound
type the website, soundobjects.com. Sound slash, not slash, but this chink, minus thingy, objects.com. So I'm going to launch that next coming days, and I'm really, really excited about that.
Awesome.
Actually.
Amazing. Really cool. And where can people find your music?
Bandcamp,
Okay.
tulpadusha.org is also, I have the website, and you can download directly from me if you want, because like I also have albums on the Modular Moon website. Of course, Bandcamp takes their cut, but for me, it's either way. You know? Either way, you can find it anywhere you want. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks. Well, thanks everybody. I really enjoyed it. We've maxed out the 2 hours by by 15 minutes, which is totally fine. But yeah, really good hanging out. Amazing to speak to you all and pick your brains.
Likewise.
Yeah, really good. I was.
Thanks for the invitation.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Totally.
I mean, I'm really happy that we had this opportunity. I actually want to mention a few things still. Our Discord server, I mentioned it earlier. Have a look there. Sander will probably post a link now in the chat. It's where all the nerds hang out when we're not online chatting here. It's we're over there continuing the conversation, getting to know people and everything. It's a really nice place. And the other thing is, check out our Patreon page. That's actually the place where you can sign up for the masterclasses we do at Stoor, and also there are various other tiers where you get sound packs and other stuff, inside information. So have a look there at our Patreon page, and yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll just plug the latest release that we did. The latest vinyl in the archive is our 3 EPs I did with Charlton, live improvs cut to vinyl in in-house lathe room, and they're available now through the Stoor Bandcamp. So yeah, have a look there. That's pretty much it for me now. So thanks again. Have a nice evening, and thanks for everybody who watched this on Twitch. And yeah, have a nice evening. See you later.
See you later, guys.
See you.